And so that's what I really love about that. Okay. So I think we have a really good idea. We've really broken down your operation, really let people understand kind of what you're doing, and people will get a ton of nuggets from everything you just kind of explained. You're doing a niche sequential. You're doing first to market marketing against auction data. You're treating your numbers really healthy. You're moving that data through a pipeline, and then really following up really well with it. What do you feel as though is right now still is a bottleneck in your operation right now? What's going on? Welcome to the Real Estate Dojo podcast. My name is Tyler Austin, founder and CEO of REISift. We do some real estate investments here in Northwest Florida, but primarily my job is to help other real estate investors scale their sales and marketing to help convert more prospects to leads and more leads to revenue utilizing the REISift platform. And something we created to help do that was the Real Estate Dojo podcast, otherwise acronymed as RED, which so happens to be the color you don't want on your profit and loss statement. So that's what we try to do. We aim to remove the color red from your profit and loss statement by giving you some actionable advice on what you're doing in your business right now in order to get to that just next level. And then we bring you on 3 to 6 months from now again in order to hear where you're at and just kind of get an update. So today we have Medium Wave Dave, which is kind of a tongue twister, Dave, otherwise just known as Dave. And I'm going to let him introduce himself and kind of his background, his experiences and stuff. Known Dave for a little while now. He's in the REISift community. He's in the Willing and Relentless group, and he's just always super energetic, and he has a lot of energy to give to the world. And he's got some big problems that he's been dealing with that hopefully we can help out with. Big good problems. Let's say big good problems. Don't want to put the wrong narrative on that. What's up, Dave, man? Appreciate you bringing on. Appreciate you being vulnerable.
Thanks, man. I've never been so excited for someone to tell me everything I'm doing wrong.
Right? I know. Tell me about it.
Yeah, Medium Wave Dave is a bit of a tongue twister, but it nailed it, man. And stoked to be graduating to some bigger problems here. Love everything you do. So, yeah, man, where do we start?
Yeah, let's just start with, you've been in real estate for a little while, actually. You've done quite a bit of different things. So let's just start with giving people just kind of an idea of who you are, where you're from, and then when you got started in real estate and a little bit of backstory there, and just kind of jump to where you're at now.
Yeah. Dave Gulick. I'm in New York. I live predominantly out in Montauk on the eastern tip of Long Island, but also live in Brooklyn. I started in real estate around 2003. Back in the days of Robert Allen, Nothing Down was like the start of my real estate investing career, and like just getting fascinated with creative finance and all the other ways to transact. The real quick of it, I built up started wholesaling, built up a portfolio, had 21 properties at one point, went too fast and did everything in my own name. Long story short, had to declare a personal bankruptcy, walked away from everything, and always said I'd be back someday. Was a nightclub bartender for like that big gap kind of period in New York City. And 2019, when the world shut down, I knew that was kind of the world giving me a sign that like, hey, remember you said you were always going to get back into real estate. You want to graduate from the nightclubs. Well, this is your sign. You have nothing else to do. Go figure it out. So I went and got, I have a pretty good network out in Montauk, so did something I never in a million years thought I would have done. But one of my best friends had more business. He had 2 phones on his ear at any given time. So I went and got licensed as an agent. Partially just I knew I wanted to build a tool belt where I can, if I'm going to pay good time and energy and money and resources to generate a lead, I wanted to have every option to possibly monetize it. So I went and did the agent thing, but immediately signed up for mentorships. Went straight back down that route. And my journey has been like this the last 2.5 years. And now it's finally like, I feel like it's kind of going like this. I've had to reinvent my business at least twice, like literally wiping the slate clean. It feels like, but each time with more knowledge. So where I'm at now is I feel like I have a semi-predictable, consistent business model. REISift's a big part of it, thanks to everything that you've created. But I guess that's my background.
Love it, man. So 2003, got started, built up a real estate portfolio, bankruptcy, and then nightclubs, which definitely creates a really big network for sure, especially in New York, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then from there, really just delving back into things, figuring out what's what. 'Cause I'm sure, especially in New York, I mean, everything shut down. I'm sure nightclubs took a really big hit. Are you doing anything in that space anymore now, or are you just totally out of it?
No, so last summer was my last. I work out in the Hamptons during the summer, so that job wrapped up September, and I kind of made enough money to be like, that's it. I'm giving it a full-time go. I know that I can essentially fund myself on a small budget to ideally make it through the winter until that next summer job came around. And when this summer came around and they asked me back, I kind of made that final decision of like, I'm full-time in real estate now. Like this is what I do for the rest of my life.
Love it. And I
Yeah.
love that you say it like that, for the rest of my life. Because a lot of people, they don't really take it to heart like that. Like, hey, this is what I do to feed myself and my family and everybody else. It's how I'm going to leave my impact, right? And so that's really big. So outside of real estate and everything, what are some of the other things that you do, man? Like, what's the life of Dave?
Yeah. So, I mean, part of how I ended up, I was a mechanical engineer by degree, and the office world just didn't work for me. I've always just kind of, my family's super entrepreneurial. And so literally bartending was a means to an end. Like I hit that point where I was like, man, I don't know what the hell I want to do with my life, but I know what makes me happy. And that was literally chasing waves and snow around the world. Found an amazing group of friends in New York City of all places, which is the opposite of like a surf and snow world. And we just like worked in nightlife, and our balance of time and money was perfect. And that like we had a lot of freedom, and I literally just chased waves and snow around the world. That was like, until I figured out what I want to do with my life, I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love it, dude. So you are you married or anything like that? Kids?
I'm not. I'm
You're
not.
not.
So I can overwork myself to the bone right now.
Yeah,
You
I love it. Okay, that sounds, honestly, I'm a little jealous of the whole like album thing. A lot of people could probably resonate with me. They're not to say I don't love my family, but I got married when I was 18 years old, and it's been like that since. And so
That's a
um,
beautiful thing.
yeah, and so but with that, you don't go surfing and chasing waves in the same kind of way that I'm sure you experience. So
There's
but
always
I
trade-offs,
trade-offs. But I love the story. I think this gives a really good idea of painting the picture of who Dave is, what his background is. So let's move into kind of where your business is at right now. And as everybody who watches the podcast knows, we like to break down really the nitty gritty of what is the tools you're using, what is the tactics you're using, and all that kind of stuff. So let's start off with me reading through some of these things. From the date that you scheduled this, one of your bigger problems is that you weren't getting conversations. So you switched from bulk marketing to like niche sequential marketing, which is essentially the ability to take one house or prospect and call through that record, text that record, and RVM, leave a voicemail. So you're really moving through each record individually to try to make sure that you're maintaining your data as accurate as possible, especially really with small niche types of records, right? And when you did that, you weren't getting connection rates, right? You're having an issue doing that. So let's talk about how you worked around that a little bit, because you already solved that problem for yourself, even though it's here, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But what was the problem that you're having, and then what tools were you using when you switched to that transition?
Yeah. So, I mean, I approach problems kind of the same way you do, like very systematically, right? So I'm like, all right, so why aren't we getting conversations? It's like, is it that our data is bad? Is it that our numbers are bad? Is it that the numbers we're dialing from are bad? Is it, I just kind of like one by one go down the checklist. I knew that the data, at least ideally, everything's, it's like, I feel like it's always about creating a thesis and then testing that thesis. So
Right.
like the thesis I had was that the highest quality leads right now are going to come from auction data because, they actually have the pain of time and the financial pain. So we kind of went, super niche just on that. Luckily, those lists started growing, so it gave us enough people to actually market to. I still don't have a KPI on that exactly on, how many auction properties I'm hitting, how many times to get a lead, to get a contract, to get a deal. But we were single line dialing with air call direct in REISift. And then we found that just nobody was picking up the phone. And each VA has 5 different numbers they're dialing from. We test our numbers daily. I even schedule, I think, their numbers for like different time blocks. So there's like consistent usage where it's like, I'll have one number will be used from like 10 a.m. to noon. And then the next number will be from noon to 2. Just to show consistent usage. I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea. Just something I'm testing. We also found that moving later in the day gave us a higher probability of getting conversations. I was skip tracing predominantly with Kind because we were just kind of doing bulk, right? When we went to niche, I went through a lot of your trainings, obviously, and I went right to Skip Genie. I figured it was just, higher quality. I'm going after much smaller lists, so I'm willing to pay a little more for that skip. And I really liked how it gave me access to family members and stuff for possible deep prospecting. I also love your approach of kind of like, I'm looking for buried treasure, right? It's like, I tell my VAs, like, I almost care more about our exhausted records than I do us getting a connect, because I know that, especially if I could stack like a vacant on top of that, I know nobody's door knocking it, nobody's mailing it, and nobody got a phone call on it. So to me, if I'm like trying to predict where's my highest probability of like making money next, like it's going to be that super small pile. So getting back to the software, REI Reply is how I'm texting and RVM. I was launch control at bulk, but that doesn't really serve its purpose here. And then air call single line dialing. That's pretty much it. I run all my data in REISift. And then my acquisitions team, I'm having a hard time transitioning them into Sift.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. But yeah, I think that answered everything.
So then what CRM are you using then?
So once it's a lead, I'm still having them tag it as a lead, and I have all the sequences built out in Sift, but they're pushing it to, most of them are coming from text, right? So people aren't answering their phone. So what
you just manage it in the platform?
So we push it into FreedomSoft.
Okay.
Once it's actually a lead, and I just do that with Zapier. So I created a web
FreedomSoft is a great product, and the founder is a fantastic individual.
The founder's great, and part of what they love about it is just the drip sequences we've set up. They like it visually to kind of see where things are at, and then they like the drips. And I'll say, I have people I've been dripping on for 8-10 months that ghost us, and then all of a sudden pop up as a lead. So it works for us. I'm kind of under the impression if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I know I'm essentially working like literally 3 different CRMs, because REI Reply can also.
Some people use CRM. Yeah.
So like I have 3 CRMs, which drives me crazy as someone who's trying to organize all of this, but I've worked it out. It makes sense to everyone.
It works out, and each one, I talk about this a lot. It's like you got to use a tool for exactly the purpose that makes sense for you, and it doesn't need to be an all-in-one type of solution. Maybe at some point, REISift has the drip sequences and the things, and it makes sense to merge that in. We will never have the capability that REI Reply does with the texting and stuff. Just doesn't fit our model. But you're using these different things for what they're good for, and what I really love is that you're not like you said, you're building a thesis, and you're looking at, well, where's really the bottleneck here? And let me fix this one thing, retest the thesis. Like, we're no different than you do in chemistry class, right? You add in the next variable, you don't change multiple things at once, and then you look at it, what can I fix, and you improve. So as of right now, really lean operation, total cost there is what? I mean, that's less than $1,000 a month for software.
$49 for, I did the annual for Sift. $49 a month for REI Reply, and then my texting, which isn't much. It's like 0.0075 cents or whatever. $199 for FreedomSoft. And that software, Zapier is $29 a month. I could look at my actual numbers, but my VAs are my biggest cost, but on the cost of that, the consistency that they buy me, which then frees me and my team to go do other things, is priceless to me.
100%. I mean, when you get good VAs, I was talking about this on our podcast yesterday with on the Ninja Cats with Jacob. I mean, he's spending $4,000 a month in marketing, which is essentially his VAs that are doing his, his roles. And I mean, really amazing returns. And they just, the big thing about them is that they're actually doing their job and executing on their tasks. And when you have, the problem that I see the most is that when people hire VAs and they start working them and then are not getting results, it's very quick for people to blame the marketing strategy and those types of things rather than looking at your team to see, do I have good team members? And so once you find those good team members, you just got to make sure you really work them in, well, as far as their happiness and the culture and all that kind of stuff, which I'm sure you do great.
Dude, the culture is everything. My VAs, essentially, I call them my boss, and they legitimately treat this as if it's their business, is how it feels to me. The big thing with VAs where people mess up is they need to feel appreciated. I noticed that when they came in, when you first hire any VAs, they're all scared. They're scared that if they don't spit out leads every day, they're not going to have a job at the end of the month. And I kind of nipped that in the bud right away. I was like, guys, all I care about is that we're creating problems every day. We're learning, we're correcting, and continuing. You have full access to me all day long. We do daily meetings every morning to start our day. And I want them to bring me problems. Like, I embrace that. They have full freedom to get on with customer service if they need to with, companies. Like, they're amazing.
That's fantastic. I love the daily ping, right? That's really important to keep that cadence. Like, hey, show up, bring your problems. What are you working on today? And that's super, super important. You got to keep it. A lot of people just don't realize, like, especially if you're using VAs that are out of country and everything like that, like they're by themselves, right? And they don't want to feel
horrible in existence is that, right?
Yeah. Like, they working through the nighttime in their time, and it's not easy, right? Most entrepreneurs wouldn't do it. In fact, that's the reason why they're hiring, because they can't. And so really important to build that culture, and you're doing that well. So I love it. You got 2, 5, right around probably 800 to 900 in software stuff, and then your VA cost. And so you're doing really well there. You're lean. There's a systematic approach that you're moving your data through. You're focusing on niche auction data, and really what you're doing is you're really focusing on being first market to those auctions. As soon as those auctions pop up, they're pulling the data in. You're uploading it to Propstream, fixing that up a little bit, getting it into REISift, which is probably where you're funneling to watch how many times have we marketed to it, and then what system does it need to go into, be it single line dialing through AirCall or texting them through REI reply. And as those results come in, as those wrong numbers come in, correct numbers, and all that, leads, that gets updated back to REISift as your core central database, so that to remove them from your marketing and move to the next thing. But then also you're pinging that over to FreedomSoft so that your acquisitions can continue following up with them. Do I have that essentially right?
Pretty much, yeah. And part of the other reason we like having FreedomSoft, honestly, is like, we don't cloud it up. We're very, kind of restrictive on what actually gets pushed through to FreedomSoft. So like, if it's still being dripped on, it's living in one of our other softwares, and there's like a VA responsible for it, like as a lead manager.
If I'm not mistaken, I think FreedomSoft has a similar functionality as what REI Reply has, doesn't it? Where you can upload prospects and text through it.
Yeah, totally.
Or is that? Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought.
We text through it. And so the beauty is, my acquisition guy, who I want to just be like a hired gun that's only having like closing conversations and like higher level stuff, I'm not backing him up with stuff that he doesn't need to do. There's that separation of kind of lead management that is largely handled by systems almost more than people, just through automations and stuff.
Love it. Okay, fantastic. So still doing single line dialing, texting, and doing ringless voicemail, REI reply, AirCall, REISift. I'm just reading through our submission here. And so your biggest challenge right now that you showed here is getting conversations, which you already fixed. And the way that you said you fixed that, and in this scenario is that you switched over to a different skip tracing provider to track to see about, is that going to change basically the pickup ratio? And they ended up helping fix that, where you switching to a different skip tracing provider ultimately made it to where you're getting some better conversations, which I'm assuming, and this is again just me assuming, really what it means that you probably maintained a no answer rate, but you probably increased a correct number rate. So is what might have happened there, because most often if you're getting 10 phone numbers back from both sources, most of the time your no answer rate is going to stay relatively consistent. But when people do pick up, you're getting a more consistent, oh, you're the right homeowner. Was it that you weren't experiencing any really pickups before? Like you're just no answer. So there's a lot more dead numbers than there
Yeah.
were numbers that would ring, period.
We weren't even getting pickups. We were getting nothing. Like I could look through my KPIs. They give me a report every day to see what that looks like. But they weren't even getting conversations, because I want to do call calibrations with them as much as we can, especially when we're going after like an auction type lead, where they could get a lot of questions they can't handle necessarily. We don't even have actual like conversations.
There was no conversations happening. So what it sounds like is that data provider, you're getting a lot of dead numbers, which was making it to where you weren't even ringing to even have the opportunity to get a correct number or wrong number ratio. Then you switch over to a different skip tracing provider, and after you skip trace that next provider, you skip trace through it. You called through it, started getting connections, and then you even added on another layer that you mentioned before you started recording. It's essentially you're verifying phone numbers before you start dialing.
So the game changer was I added a couple layers, right? So I added a layer of when I initially pull my auction data. My VA does a bunch of cleaning. She does all the cleaning, basically. She takes out all of the trusts and LLCs, and then she cleans anything she can clean. So ideally, we're just skipping super clean data. I'm using a tier 1 skip tracer, and I'm getting over 99% response, on the skip. But then what I'm doing after that is, so you understand this, like if you're getting 10 numbers back, 5 numbers back, whatever it is, let's just say I'm getting 5 numbers back on average. And only one of those is a correct number. That means my VAs are 80% inefficient. I'm wasting 80% of their time literally just trying to figure out which number is the right number. So I found I'm testing something now with a verification service that'll basically scrape it against the carriers and let me know which number is still
at least aligned,
at least active according to AT&T, T-Mobile, whoever, Verizon. And then it gives me another layer of which one is active and has a caller ID match with the name that I fed in. So now I'm getting a much higher skip trace result, and I'm whittling down my data to like, hey, there's, where's my highest probability of a conversation or a text response is the people with active and verified caller IDs and numbers. So I start there. So that's a much smaller data set compared to the whole shebang. And then I have my stuff that's non-caller ID match, but also an active number that's verified. That's like my tier 2. And then like my tier 3 has no active numbers. And that's where like I could literally just skip straight to that and go right into deep prospecting on that. Could be another route, especially with auction data, because I know that, everyone else probably gave up, especially if I stack vacant on that. Now I have an auction property. It has real pain. It has a real time constraint. Nobody's getting it on numbers. I've gone through all the hoops to use a tier 1 provider. Like if I'm not getting a result and it's vacant, then chances are none of my competition is either. So there's like my highest likelihood of like, where's my next deal coming from?
I love that. And I was listening. I apologize. Apparently our home inspector showed up today. I thought all that stuff was happening Friday, and apparently the WDO inspection and the home inspection was happening today. I thought I had 4 more days. But I love that because you're trying to really streamline their time, right? The more that you can front load some work in order to try to get them on the phone sooner, the better. For newer individuals, something that I want to point out here is he didn't start off with that, right? He started off by getting consistency doing a process, and now that he's proved his thesis, right? Now he's adjusting it and improving upon it, and that's something. Because what'll end up happening is people be like, oh, let me just jump to like implementing everything that Dave just said, and that's not exactly how you want to do it. He's working to figure out how to continue to improve his operation, and doing that is one of those things, because it's all about measuring your KPIs. And if you notice that your no answer rate is really high, then you look at, okay, how many dead, correct, and wrong numbers am I getting? If you realize you have a ton of dead numbers, and let's just say your team is dialing 100 numbers a day, and 60 of those are dead numbers, you can do the right math and calculation. Say, okay, well, if I spend X amount of dollars up front, I could remove that from 60% down to 20%. And on average, that means I'm going to increase, because I can dial more numbers. It means I'm going to increase the amount of correct numbers I get daily. And it's measurable and it's beautiful because it was systematic, and it wasn't just shotgunning it. It was actually intentional. And so that's what I really love about that. Okay. So I think we have a really good idea. We've really broken down your operation, really let people understand kind of what you're doing, and people will get a ton of nuggets from everything you just kind of explained. You're doing a niche sequential. You're doing first to market marketing against auction data. You're treating your numbers really healthy. You're moving that data through a pipeline, and then really following up really well with it. What do you feel as though is right now still is a bottleneck in your operation right now? Do you think that it is the fact that you're generating leads but not converting them? Are you converting them and you just can't take action on them? Let's listen to kind of where you're at now with the struggle.
Yeah, I mean, partially, I don't have time on my side yet. I haven't. I mean, like I said, we wiped the whiteboard clean. I was going from bulk to this, so I don't have enough time on these strategies, because it takes, the deals are in the follow-up, right? So even though these have actual pain and like an expiration date on their auction, like these little ticking time bombs, I haven't been doing the niche sequential long enough to have things really be converting. And I understand this is a patience game. That being said, I do have plenty of deals in my pipeline, from our JV, from other kind of streams. And where my bottleneck right now, and I never thought I'd say this, is capital. The conversations I need to have every day are raising capital, hard money lenders, private capital, whatever. I can't fund all the deals that are coming across my plate. And that kind of sounds douchey to say that. But that would capital would 1000% be my bottleneck right now.
Okay. I ended up leaving and coming back in because of my internet. But I got to hear the backside of that, where it was capital is your number one bottleneck right now. So let's talk about that, because this is something big. In fact, I just had a conversation this morning about this with one of the local guys here that I've used for private money lending quite a bit. And what's interesting about this too is you see a lot of people right now focusing on this, and right now is the time to do this. Right now is a great time to raise capital. Even in the software world, we're seeing venture capitalists backing out. We're seeing places like TechCrunch, who was original money in Cali with Airbnb and all these other massive companies. Now Facebook they invested in Facebook. And all of these companies, VCs, backing out. They're not putting money anywhere. Hedge funds in real estate, not putting money anywhere. However, when those types of individuals start backing out, it's because they're unsure of the asset, right? They're unsure of what's going to go on. But as the market adjusts and shifts, what it does is it takes the general person, the person who believed in the things like the stock market and crypto and everywhere else they were putting their money, they start getting scared and taking their money out of those locations. And then their perception is that real estate is still better because they see real estate not crashing right now, right? And so that's where it's very interesting, in how it doesn't matter what's going on in the market. There's always opportunity, because if you can find the deal, then you're gonna need to find money to do it. And if you find a deal, that means that money is obviously something that we can find, because especially right now, other places aren't as secure. So this could be something you totally already see. You totally already know is happening. But one of the biggest things that people are doing right now is reaching out to people with 401k plans that they know they have 401k plans, and they're having them move their money out of 401k plans and put it stored in real estate. So I see a lot of people doing this with like rentals, right? Instead of saying, hey, come do this flip for me, hey, store it in this rental and I'll give you equity, right? So they're getting things like really low percentage interest rates on their money, and they're trading that for a level of equity in the property, so that they can increase the amount of cash flow overall. And so it's better to be not losing money in the stock market and have it secured in an asset. So they're selling the security of the asset that's at least not going to dip. And so they can at least have the equity. And by nature of having equity, you can structure it in two different ways. You can literally give them back, or you can give them a percentage of cash flow for a lower amount of equity in the property. Or you can give them zero equity in the property and just give them cash flow only, right? So there's lots of ways to structure that. But that's the biggest thing right now. And there is companies out there such as I believe Lending Home had a similar type of model like this, where you could have and they're called something else now, but what essentially you would do is actually, it's not Lending Home. I'm sorry. It's I'll have to get it. I'll have to get you the resource.
Okay.
I can't think of their name right now. But essentially, it's an IRA company, and this IRA company allows you to create an account where other people can create 401ks and IRAs at their company that you can then utilize for your flips. Because the big thing with 401ks, IRAs, and all those things is that you can't, like, I can't use my own IRA, my self-directed 401k, in order to buy my own property. Right. And in return. It just doesn't work that way. I need somebody else's to do that. So that's a really big thing right now. And you might have already been aware of that one, but that's where you want to start leveraging all those relationships that you had or still have from the street game, if you will. That's a great place to use it. This is that 401ks, there's very few people now right now that have jobs that they're actually putting money in the 401k. So the types of individuals are going to be individuals that are in their upper 40s, 50s, that have been working at a job long enough to store away money in a 401k. $100,000, $250,000 in a 401k that they've had sitting there that they now see depleting. And it's those types of individuals, and those individuals that are in that upper 50s range, that are getting to the point where they got like 5, 6, 10 years left until retirement, and they can see the potential of all of their work for the last 30, 40 years just gone because of a recession. And so you can kind of give them that security of saying, hey, move it out of here, put it in this asset, and you're going to get $300 a month in cash flow guaranteed, plus the equity in the property. And so there's a lot more security there, so you can sell that. But you got to find the right individuals. And what we find people doing, what I'm advising people to do to help find these people, is pull a list that is no different than what you would do for a property, except we're not pulling it based off of the property. We're pulling it based off the demographics, and we're getting their property address for this. You can use Listsouce for this, and you can pull Listsouce based off demographic information. And you can find individuals that'll be in that age gap, but own a home in a specific location where requires them to have good jobs, where they'd have a higher likelihood of having 401k, and then do marketing directly to them through IR Apply or whatever, saying, hey, the market's crazy or whatever, and actually, try to convert them. You got to be careful in how you do it, in the sense that with the whole raising capital aspect of things, make sure you do it as a soft approach, have the conversation and let them know what's going on, because you don't want to accidentally make it seem like you're doing a fundraise. But that's a really good way. Actually, people my age, they're basing it off of the demographics of their grandparents or their depending on who you are, where you are, you can kind of figure out who those demographics are. But
I love that the way you approach that is the same way we approach generating, seller leads.
Right.
You create an avatar for what seller has the highest likelihood of selling their home right now, specifically at a discount or at numbers that we need to be able to make profit as investors. Do the same thing to who has capital sitting somewhere that has the highest probability of lending it on real estate.
Right. And what's really cool too is they don't even necessarily have to, because everybody you might live in a $600,000 home, but you're broke. And more often than not, a lot of people are like that, right? Where they overbuy and make themselves broke. But they might know that buddy who lives in a $200,000 home, but works at the same job, and he's, got a lot of money. And so you can open it up to make sure that, say, hey, well, if you know anybody and you can bring me, for every $100,000 that you can bring me, I'll pay you X amount of dollars once we utilize their money, right? And so you can have people say, hey, I heard of this thing. This is how back in the day, or even now, people would sell, go out, call doctors and stuff like that, and get them to buy, stocks and stuff like that, right? They would reward and entice people. We'll bring more people from the doctor's office, and I'll give you some, some money towards, or I'll lower my fee for management, little things like that. And so that's the best way to go about it right now. I think that's the easiest way to where you don't have to go out and create some other brand new process in your business and trying to figure out some way to do it, where you literally just pull some data, add it in, no different than you'd add anything else in, except for it's just the private money raised campaign. That's it. And here's another trick that you can do here. And in fact, I have a video on, I can't remember if it's the REISift page or my personal YouTube channel, but on Listsouce, you can pull a private money lender list. It's basically like a reverse buyer's list. And so what you do is you pull a list that
like second position lenders or something.
Well, they could be first or second position, but you basically pull the list of cash transactions, and then you pull the Excel document. And when you do it, on your additional fields, you add in that you want the lender's information in the additional fields, so that when you pull that, you can see if it's a hedge fund that bought it and lended the money, if it was a hard money, and then so any of those that are just a person's name, right? It means that it's an individual that's lending that. So that's one way. And the specific option on it, it has a name that I can't recall right off the top of my head, but I do have a video on it.
Amazing.
Let me try to see what it's called really quick though. I want to make sure that I mention it. Yeah, I'll find it. Private money lender hack. This is it right here.
Boom. There we go.
Yeah. So it's under the Listsouce series on our REISift YouTube channel. It's called Private Money Listsouce Data Series by REISift. Okay. So Sweet. Go there and check that out. Pull that list, and what you do is you just instead of uploading the property, you upload the as the name. You upload the property and then the lender's name, and you create a separate list for it, and then you market to them as such, right? But yeah, man, that's how I would approach that. And then obviously, and until then, because creative strategies, I would try to utilize as much zero money down owner finance as possible.
Yeah.
Until, but is there any other?
That's part of why we like auction stuff as well. It's like ideally we could just get in for the arrears and maybe some working capital.
Yeah, and so obviously you also have other strategies you could do here. Depending on, this is just mentioning things for other individuals. You might have some rental properties that do have some equity in them. We could pull out some equity in those. Really what we want to do right now is what a lot of companies are doing is two things as we roll into this market of uncertainty. Number one is obviously increase our amount of private capital that we have accessible to us, which we've already talked about. Number two, create 6 months runway. And number three, obviously never put too much on our plate where we can't handle. But with the runway and the raising private money capital part, those two are definitely the most important, because the more that we can do there, the better. Change our buy criteria, and a big thing right now is as you're doing these different things, you're looking at these auction properties, it's just look at, like, think about the avatar really heavily, because as of right now, I'm just going to use my market as an example here. As of right now, if someone were to buy a $400,000 home, right? Like I looked at a property this morning. They're asking $230 for it, and I know a buddy has a property just appraised 2 streets over for $399, and so buying at $230, $399, it's probably $100,000 rehab or so. There's like 60 grand on the table, and so it could make sense. 212 would be better, but the point is that as our market continues to increase in the percentage, right, of interest rates, right, a $400,000 house is going to end up costing $3,000 a month to have, and that's insane, right? That's insane to think about, paying $3,000 a month for a $400,000 property. Now, New York, those are baby chump numbers when it comes to this, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, if that. But in my market, our average purchase, you got to look at the average, what the average person makes annually in your market to see what's going to happen. So when I'm looking at these different asset classes, and I'm marketing to these auction properties, what's going to happen? Is it more likely that people are going to have to just get used to the fact that a $400,000 home isn't fully remodeled and beautiful? It's what used to be the $150,000 home, right? Or is it that prices are going to have to get pushed back because of the fact that people just can't afford the mortgages, period, right? And so there's going to be either a new type of asset, meaning property created, or there's going to be a forced drop in the cost of homes because of the fact that people just simply can't afford those homes with the interest rates. It's more likely, just like what happened in California, what happens in New York is it's more likely that people are going to start renting homes together. They'll rent out rooms, which is already happening locally here. You got a lot of rooms that are being shared, rented to be able to afford the mortgage or afford the rental and stuff like that. So these are the things we want to look at. And if we study that first and understand our avatar and understand what's going to happen before we're projecting, then we can take and we can sell that story to our private money lenders, right? And say, because they're going to come back and be like, well, what if the market drops? Well, I got something for that. This is our analysis. This is what's going to happen. And so now we can kind of continue to go back and we can even narrow in on the type of data that we are focusing on to get us in a position where we can, bring in that opportunity. ADUs are going to be a big thing. Single family residence with ADUs, that, potential stuff like that. So, at any rate, is there anything else going on in your business that I might be able to shed any sort of light on?
Man, I don't think so. We kind of did everything you said there, because I'm in the war group and stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of sets me up for success a little bit more. We actually keep, our plan is to keep a year's worth of salary and operating expenses. That's just our comfort zone right now. I mean, we don't pay ourselves much, but the goal is that that gives us like a launch pad to now we're looking towards our bonuses. We're also, we just completely changed, we narrowed our buy box, right? We are now median price point only. Like if it's not in $150,000 to $300,000 range with at least 3 bedrooms within half an hour of a major city, like that, we're just very specific on highest possibility of, buyers and tenants. We want to stay in there. Also, we're our business is transitioning from where we were wholesale heavy, build the capital, to now we're building cash flow. But my partner and I, it's just our lifestyle goals. We don't necessarily want to be landlords. So we're going to be wrapping a lot of these. Our next phase of our evolution in business is we want cash flow. So all I'm concerned is, do the numbers make sense, and can I wrap a lot of these things? So I'm not taking on the risk in an uncertain economy. We'll be creating a lot of notes. That's going to be part of our strategy, and just sitting on seconds with zero risk in the game. So we're basically just structuring ourselves so whatever happens in the economy, we're good. We have active income, we have a reserve account, and we have cash flow. And then I'll worry about depreciation next. I'm not ready to graduate to that problem. I understand that's if I go make a bunch of money, that's a real problem to have, keeping the money. I'm just not ready for it yet. So I'll worry about that when I have to worry about it.
I love it. Fantastic, man. Well, I really appreciate you hopping on and being vulnerable, sharing what you got going on, sharing your story. Where can people reach out if they have advice for you on some of the things that we talked about, or if they just have questions on how you're doing things in your market, JV, and all that good stuff?
Yeah, I'm pretty easy to find in any of your Facebook groups, REISift or whatever, just David Gulick. And honestly, DMs on Instagram is probably the best way to get me. I'm, kind of building out the personal brand a little bit. So at Medium Wave Dave on Instagram, we'll be kind of opening up some case studies and things that we're doing more. So
I just realized that Medium Wave Dave is a surfing thing.
Oh yeah. So the real quick on that, because I get this question all the time. Any Dave who surfs anywhere in the world or has even tried surfing pretty much gets the nickname Big Wave Dave. So arguably there's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Big Wave Daves all over the world. And I'm in my 40s now. So I hit middle age, and middle wave Dave didn't have the same effect. So amongst some friends, it kind of became medium wave Dave. And then I was just like, oh my God, it doesn't exist anywhere. I couldn't find it. So I got the .com, the Instagram, the TikTok, that like I got the whole shebang, and I was like,
I love it.
That's who I am
Nice.
now. It makes people laugh. It's easy to find. It's easy to remember. And yeah.
I love it. Medium wave Dave. All right. Fantastic, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Y'all utilize him as a resource. He's a wealth of knowledge in the New York area. JV with him. And I appreciate you hopping on again, man. I really do. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for your insight.
100%, bro.
Later.
Later.